Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this next video lesson. We're going to continue our discussion about the while statement. And in this little application, here's what you're going to do. You're going to ask the user to enter an integer. When they click the calculate running sum, it'll give you the running sum of the number from 1 all the way up to the number that was entered by the user. So for example, in this case, the user entered the number 12, so this would be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12, and then the answer in this case is 78. So that's what calculate the running sum means. So let's take a look at the user requirements. The goal of this program is to determine the running sum based on the user input. Figure 1 displays what the program looks like when it initially is executed. Figure 2 displays what the program looks like when the user enters an integer, followed by clicking the calculate running sum button. A running sum is the addition of all the numbers from 1 to the user number. So for example, if the user entered 5, the running sum would be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. Okay? We're going to use the following names for the controls. We're going to remove the maximize and minimize button from the form. We're going to use these variables that are going to be local to this procedure. And we have to associate the enter key on the keyboard with this button on the form. Okay, so let's work on this graphical user interface. I have Visual Studio already running, and I created a VB Lab 17 project. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag and drop a button, we're going to drag and drop a label, and also a text box to the form. Let me go back to the handout, and you'll see that there's a label that says enter an integer with a colon at the end of it. So let me move this over here. And the property, the text property specifically, is going to be enter an integer colon. Okay. Let's see here. Then we have a text box next to that label. So we'll move this text box over here. And then we have a button that says calculate running sum. So let me move this button over here. Make it about this tall. Move it up a little bit closer. And calculate running sum is what the text property is supposed to say. So calculate running sum. And then we have a line, which, as you know, is nothing more than a label. So I'll take this label, copy and paste it. And let me turn the auto size feature to false for this label. Let me resize it so it's the same width as this button. I'm going to change the back color to black. And then I'm going to change the height to 1, so I'll have to move down to the size property, expand that, and then over here where it says height, I'll type in the number 1. And then let me select this and use my arrows to move it up a little bit. Let me look at the handout. That looks about right. Okay, then down here I'm supposed to place a label, as you can see here. So let me just take this label, copy and paste it. I'm going to change the auto size feature to false, and then resize this thing so it's the same width as the button. So that looks about right. And it looks like the text is going to be middle centered. So let me change the alignment to middle center. This guy right here. And then also let me change the border style to fixed 3D. And there's not supposed to be any text in it initially, so I'll have to erase the content in the text property. So I'll press delete. All right, there we go. Now I can go ahead and change the form size to something like this. Let me get rid of the maximize and the minimize button for the form. So let's see, maximize box, set that to false, minimize box, set that to false. The form is supposed to say running sum for the text property. So running sum, all right. And I also remember that at the end here, we're supposed to associate the enter key on the keyboard with the calculate running sum button. So what that means is you're going to select the form, you're going to go up to the accept button property, and we're going to associate this with the button. But I haven't named it yet, so let me go ahead and name these controls before I continue. Let's see, what am I supposed to do? The text box is supposed to be txt user num. So let me go up to the name property, txt user num. This button is supposed to be named btn calc running sum. And then the label is supposed to be LBL result. All right, now that I've done that, I can click the form by clicking the title area. I'm going to change the accept button property so that it has an association with BTN calc running sum. So now when I click this button or when I press enter on the keyboard, it's the same thing as if I clicked this button. Okay, so I think that's it for the graphical user interface. Looks good. Now what I'm going to do is double click on this button, and I don't need the properties panel, and I'm going to start to code. Well, the first thing that I notice is on the bottom I'm telling you that you need to declare these variables. So let me go ahead and put a declarations comment. Okay, so declarations, and it looks like we have user number as an integer. Okay, so dim user num as integer. And then we have running sum, dim running sum as integer. And we also have count, dim count as integer. All right, let's get the user input. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to assign to user num, first let me convert to int32, whatever is inside of the text box. So we'll take the text from the text box, we'll convert it to a whole number, and then we'll place it into user num. Well, once we've done that, we can go ahead and calculate the running sum. Well, before I calculate the running sum, I'm going to have to probably initialize these two variables to something. Let me initialize the variable running sum to 0. At first, it has no values. Well, I shouldn't say it has no value. 0 is, in fact, a value. So we'll set it equal to 0 at first, and then as we have more numbers, we'll just simply add them to the running sum. So we'll update the value of running sum. In terms of count, that's going to be used for my looping structure. So I'm going to set that also equal to 0. Well, when I want to calculate the running sum, the while statement is a perfect candidate for this. So I'm going to say while count is less than the user number, and then press enter. So again, the while statement is going to keep on looping over and over and over again from here to here, the content in between. It's going to keep on looping until this is no longer true. While this thing is true, it's going to keep on looping, so that is while count is less than user number. Well, while count is less than user number, what do we want to do? Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to add the running sum, right? So in this case, running sum is going to equal to running sum plus, and then whatever the number is that was entered by the user. Well, in this case, let's see here. Let's add count to this. And actually, you know what I'm thinking? I think I need to change this from count equals to 0 to count equals to 1. And then I'll say as long as count is less than or equal to the user number. I think that would actually be better. Here's what my thinking is. Count will be the first number that we'll consider. So for example, if the user entered, let's say, the number 3. Well, this would mean 1 plus 2 plus 3. I shouldn't say equals. Let me put a colon here. If the user entered the number 3, that means that we are interested in the running sum of 1 plus 2 plus 3, which in this case would be 6. Well, if I let count equal to 1, that would be this one right here. And then I'll increment count by 1 to make it 2. And then I'll increment count again to make it 3. And I'll add all these up. So running sum is going to equal to, at first it's 0, because that's the initial value. Count is going to be, it's at first equal to 1. And so now running sum is going to equal to 1. Well, after I've done that, I'm going to increment the value of count by 1. Now that I've incremented the value of count by 1, it's going to be 2. Well, now that I've done that, I go back over here and I'll say, is 2 less than the user number, assuming that the user entered 3. Yep, that's true. So running sum, which is now equal to 1, is going to be 1 plus 2. So that's going to be 3. And this is going to be 3. Is 3 less than or equal to? See, that's why I added the equal. So that when I get to the third number, 3 is in fact less than or equal to 3. So running sum is now going to equal to 6. Count now will be incremented. Is 4 less than or equal to 3? That's a false statement, so that would be the end of the while statement. Now, if that was a little bit too fast, I'm going to re-explain this again when I run the program. So just go ahead and type in the code. The last thing we need to do is to output the results, or output the result. And that would just simply mean this. The label .text property, we're going to convert to a string whatever running sum is. And that should do it. All right, so first let me test the program by running it. All right, so let's see here. If I enter the number 3, the running sum is 6. That's true because 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. About 5. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15. That's good. And I think I had a 12 here, so that's 78. Let's go back to the handout. And let's see, here's the handout. When you type in 12, the answer should be 78, and sure enough, that's exactly what I see. So it looks like it works. If I type in the number 1, the running sum is 1, 2, it should be 3, 3, it should be 6, 4 should be 10, 5, 15, 6, 21, 7, 28. Okay, everything is working fine. Now let me make sure that I explain to you the logic behind this code. First, I'm going to close the application, and I'm going to close the output. Let me stop the code right here at the get the user input statement, and then let's run the code. All right, well, the first thing, let's say that the user wants to find out what the running sum is all the way up to 3. So 1 plus 2 plus 3. Calculate the running sum. So when I click this button, notice what's going to happen. First, we're going to stop at this line of code right here. And what we're about to do is to obtain the user input. Well, that's going to be 3 in this case. So let me go ahead and step through this. All right, so now that the user number is equal to 3, let's take 3 and ask the question, is count, which is equal to 1 right now, because we set it equal to 1, is count less than or equal to 3? Well, that's a true statement. Since it's a true statement, we are now going to update the value of running sum. So notice how when I click step over, it's going to go into the while statement. So it goes into the while statement, and currently the value of running sum is 0. I set it equal to 0 because I don't know how many values the user wants to see, right? Does he want the running sum of 1, 2, 3, 4? I don't know. So I set it equal to 0 at first. Notice over here that count is equal to 1, right? Because I want to give it the first value of any running sum, which is going to be the number 1. So therefore, 0 plus 1 is 1. Running sum is therefore going to be equal to 1 as soon as I click this button. Watch this. Click step over, and there it is. Running sum is equal to 1. Well, now we have to get ready for the next digit. So count is going to be incremented by 1. So watch what happens when I click step over. Count is now equal to 2. Okay, so now I go back over to the top of the while statement and ask the question of whether or not we should continue doing our while statement. Well, is 2 less than or equal to 3? That's a true statement. So therefore, when I click step over, it goes back into the while statement. Running sum is equal to 1 plus 2. So 1 plus 2, this should become 3 as soon as I click step over. So I click step over, sure enough, running sum is equal to 3. All right, so now that running sum is equal to 3, we need to update count by adding 1 to it. So count plus 1 should be 3 as soon as I execute this statement. So I execute the statement. Now notice the count is equal to 3. All right, let's go back to the top of the while statement and consider if whether or not we need to run this while statement again. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. All right, so therefore when I click step over, it goes into the while statement once again. Currently, the value of running sum is 3. Well, 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. So therefore, running sum should be 6 as soon as I click step over. There it is. Count is 3. We're going to add 1 to it, so it's going to become 4. So here it is. Count is equal to 4. All right, now we go back to the top of the while statement and ask, should we do this again? Is 4 less than or equal to 3? No. False statement. So notice now when I click the step over button, it's going to go out of the while statement, right? Jumps out of the while statement. So now we're going to output the result, which means taking the running sum, which is 6, converting it to a string, and putting it into the label. So now let me click continue, and that's why you see the number 6, because 1 plus 2 plus 3 is equal to 6 in terms of the running sum. Okay? All right, so this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.